All right, guys, welcome to the Savage Waterman podcast. I have my guest today, Karl Schnitzer, and I will read you a quick bio from his website, Producer's Wealth. So let me pull it up here. So, Karl is an investor and entrepreneur from Philadelphia. While patrolling the streets of Philadelphia as a police officer, he learned how to invest in real estate and simultaneously built a real estate rent portfolio of over 75 units. Real estate investing led Karl to the infinitive banking concept, where he first came here as a client. After several years of learning and firsthand using infinite banking to build his real estate portfolio and establish an unbreakable legacy plan for his family, he decided to get his insurance license to teach this powerful tool to other investors, business owners, and families to help them break away from Wall Street and commercial banking. Karl retired from the police department in 2020 to pursue investing in entrepreneurship full time. Karl invests in several fix and flips each year and adds many rental units each year to his rental portfolio. Karl is also a licensed realtor in PA and enjoys helping clients sell and buy their personal homes as well as investment properties. So, welcome, Karl. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Josh. I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah, I mean, nobody else would know, but we had a conversation earlier this afternoon, and we're both like-minded individuals, had a lot in common, and so he has a podcast as well. We'll delve into that a little bit later, but I thought, man, he'd be a perfect guest for the Savage Waterman. So here he is. It's same day. We talked to each other a couple hours ago. So welcome again, and good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Yeah, hopefully I can add some value for your listeners.
Yeah. So I have a lot of people on my podcast. Like I told you before, it started out with fighters and surfers because those are my two biggest passions. But then I started rolling into anybody that could add value and interesting topics that I appreciate. So it's investors, real estate, crypto. We've had, I mean, you name it, we've had it on here. And so I thought you'd be a perfect fit. So tell us the transition. One, you were a former police officer, but how did you transfer over to the banking world and the real estate market and all? Like how they're pretty vast career
Yeah.
changes. So tell us a little bit about that.
So I went to college for criminal justice. Straight out of college, started the police academy. I knew I wasn't going to stay there long. To me, it was kind of just a stepping stone until I got into real estate and everything full time. Um, and kind of what I really wanted to do was just learn the market, mostly pretty much. So when I was patrolling the streets, I was just learning the markets, learning all the blocks, learning who all the players were in the area. Like, because when you drive around, especially the districts that I were in, you can't drive a block without seeing flippers and investors rehabbing houses. So I started networking with them, started partnering on some flips. It was kind of a cool time too, where the first couple deals that I was doing, my dad was retiring out of construction, and I was going into investing. So him and I partnered on some stuff where he was, managing a lot of the rental or the rehab stuff, and I was putting the deal together. I was finding it, getting all the hard money stuff figured out, running comps. So I went from policing, real estate at the same time, investing. I wasn't a realtor yet, so I was buying rental properties and flipping houses, which kind of led to me getting my realtor license. Just was paying realtors so much money with all the different commissions, and I was like, you know what, I could do this myself. I'll get access to the MLS. There's a lot of benefits to it, so got my realtor license. Only represented myself and like close family friends for the first couple of years that I had my license. That real estate investing kind of led into infinite banking, which is what I'm most passionate about. We can kind of dive into that, shortly, but basically all that kind of led into me retiring slash resigning. I didn't have enough years on to retire, but leaving the police department for several reasons you and I kind of discussed off topic, but it just wasn't for me. Wasn't the right time to be a cop. Wasn't the right city to be a cop. So myself and many others are all leaving the departments.
Yeah. So when you said you became a police officer with the intent that it was only going to be a short time, was that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there was thoughts that I had of, hey, I'm gonna start taking tests, get promoted, be a captain one day, something like that. And they didn't really last long. Those thoughts.
Yeah. So is anybody in your family a realtor or investor, or like how did you know that you wanted to do that?
No, nobody in my family was in real estate. Honestly, just from like kind of researching. So I was big into like financial freedom. That was the goal. And from doing all that kind of research and studying, reading books, Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm sure everyone says, um, all of that is, what led me to real estate.
Mhm. So you were kind
So
of an entrepreneur at heart before you even became an
yeah,
officer.
I mean, I entrepreneur is, I guess that's what I'm considered, but to me, I was just on the pursuit of freedom. I didn't want to answer to anybody. Um, and not that I, can't like take an order or, be an employee, but I just didn't feel free, especially in law enforcement. I mean, there's so many things you have no power. I mean, we would joke in the department, the only reason they give you a badge is because you're just a number to them.
Yeah,
And it's so true. I mean, if there's a mandatory overtime shift or every holiday, every weekend, overnights, whatever they say, you're doing. You have no say. And I hated that kind of power that someone else had over me, where they said, "Hey, you're working, Christmas. Okay, I don't have a say." And I just hated someone else or some other, power having that authority over my life.
that's 100% why I quit the corporate world. I was an outdoor salesman for Avion Water, and I would say, "Hey,"
Okay.
because we go to Mexico a lot, and I'd say, "Hey, I'm going to Mexico. I know my out or my vacation time or whatever. I'm gonna go." And he's like, my manager's like, "Well, you've been using a lot. I think maybe." And I'm like, "No, you mistaken my question. I'm not asking. I'm pretty much telling you I'm going."
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I was just a number. Eventually they laid me off, and they promised me the world and all these advancements. And when the time came, oh, by the way, you don't have a job today.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I mean,
It
it's such.
wasn't even like when I was a cop, but my immediate supervisors, my corporal, sergeant, lieutenant, captain, that's kind of really all you associate with, as a cop level. They were all awesome. Like I had no complaints with them, but it was the powers above them
Yeah,
that, you don't know on a personal level. It's, hey, we need 400 cops for this concert detail, this week, and you got the lowest payroll, so you're going.
yeah. Well, we talked about it earlier, and if you don't want to talk about it, do you want to like kind of talk about what we talked about earlier about?
Yeah, I don't care. I'm
uh,
open about it all.
Okay.
So
So we did talk about earlier about the issues of being a police officer now, how the city doesn't support our police officers. I'm a big police supporter, and that's actually how we brought it up because we were talking about another project I have called the Savage Syndicate, and I was saying how I'm a big supporter of the police. But when it comes down to it, we're the first responders. We're responsible for protecting ourselves and our family. And I did not know he was a police officer or a former police officer. And then he grabbed a picture and showed himself.
mhm.
And then we took over and started talking about how crazy the country we live in right now is. They're not supporting the police. So it's hard for these guys, and you can elaborate more, hard for you guys to go out there and do a job, protect people when the people and the city you're working for they don't have your back. So maybe you could
Yeah,
talk a little bit more about that.
definitely. So, I mean, it used to be, and it was always crazy. So I started in 2016 as a cop, left in 2020. So I only had 4 years on, and even in 2016, that was still like kind of the new age of policing. Like I didn't have any of the, you know, 70s, 80s, hey, this is what it's like to be a cop back here. I mean, it was always kind of messed up since I was a cop. So I didn't really have that transition of like, oh, we used to be able to do all this stuff. We can't do it anymore. To me, it was, our hands have always been tied for the most part. Um, Talking to like some of the older guys that have been on the job, the stories and things that they have, I mean, it's two completely industries from what they were actually doing and being cops to what goes on now. And um, I mean, it's like you said, the city just they don't have our back. You can kind of guess which cities that is,
Yeah.
and there's certain powers that be. Our district attorney is not our friend at all. He won't prosecute anybody. Um, I mean, you look at, I think the last five officers in Philly that have been shot have all been shot by people with rap sheet long that should have been in prison in the first place, and they're still out on the street and shooting at cops now.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just it's not only your life on the line as a cop now, it's your freedom too. You do one wrong split-second decision and they'll crucify you.
Yeah, and they punish the cops harder than they would the criminals out there
Oh
doing
yeah.
dipshit stuff, and it's
There's a
mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, there's a I forget the whole details of it, but there's a Facebook group locally here in Philly that is all about getting our district attorney out of office. And there was like a post or an article somebody wrote about how he sets bail for any cop that gets locked up. He sets bail ridiculous at like 200, 500,000, whatever it is. But somebody else that has 20 priors and gets locked up for a dirty gun, they're out on ROR, basically no bail, in 24 hours.
Yeah. Do you see, I mean, it's it sucks and it's hard to say, but, like, do you think they need to have all the officers leave like you did, retire, find other positions before they realize what a fuck up they've created?
So yes and no. I don't think it would change anything really. I mean, I'm all for it in a sense that, hey, we got to show them, that we need more respect. But I don't think, because I don't believe the people in power are voted in legitimately. So even if the citizens are basically so fed up with the city of Philadelphia in general, like even from the mayor down and our district attorney, they don't vote for them anyway, and yet somehow they still keep winning. So it, I think that's something we ask God one day.
Yeah. So what would you say to the person, and again, we're kinda tying this into the Savage Syndicate theory, but what would you say to the average person who is depending on the police officer, and like we talked about
Yeah,
earlier, sometimes it could take 7-10 minutes if they show up at all, because you have the state or the city tell them, hey, don't go on these calls if it's not in this tier or whatever the case may be. So how
yeah,
should people
absolutely.
now protect themselves? What's some of
It's
the basics?
I mean, this is, one of the things why I believe in your mission is because just like you said, police aren't coming fast if they come at all.
Mhm.
And great example in Philly right now, the bank that I bank at right around the corner from my house was robbed like three weeks ago or so. And I was talking to the banker about it because she was the one that was there, and she said that when they hit the panic button, it took the police 11 minutes to show up.
with
Hmm.
with a bank robber in action
Yeah,
robbing the bank.
literally. And it's not the police being lazy in a scenario like that. It's literally the fact that they're standing roll call with, them, like, so when you go to your shift and you have roll call, anybody else that's working the street is there. Sometimes it's you and one other person for an entire district, At most you may have like 4 or 5 cops or 4 or 5 cars in a district, at least in Philly here. Um, it's bad. I mean, and everything like you were saying gets graded on priorities to where the stuff that's low priority, it could take them 2 days to get to it. During the 2020 like riots and all that nonsense was absolutely insane. The amount of calls pending were 4 or 5 days old. It was like, and I mean, even so, everything's graded on a priority thing. We would have high priority jobs coming out that there were shootings that weren't getting to for an hour or 2 hours. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't the cops being lazy. It was there's literally not enough manpower to answer the calls.
But then the public doesn't see that. They take it out on you guys as not
Oh
doing your
yeah.
job and everything. It's like a vicious circle, and it's all towards negative towards you guys who are out doing the patrols, but
Yeah.
then they don't look at the higher ups who are creating the problems.
Yeah. But I mean, that's why it's crucial to know how to defend yourself. And even like you and I were saying too, there's certain things that happen, like, and you would probably know this more than me, but in your body when you get that adrenaline rush, like me and you were talking about, some people have never been punched in the face or anything.
Yeah.
There's a certain response where your fight, flight, or freeze kicks in, that if you've never experienced that before, you know you're probably not going to have a rational reaction to it. Whereas if you're training for it, you can actually hopefully think clearly and respond correctly.
Yeah, and we were talking about it because in this day of age where the criminals are so brazen, I mean, you could just turn on the news or go on Instagram and see a
Oh
thousand
yeah,
broad daylight attacks. They're not waiting until people go to sleep anymore. They're watching you walk out of the bank, watching you go to the ATM,
yeah.
or
There was
now.
a video recently.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say there's a video recently, a couple weeks ago, in Philly, and it's broad daylight. Some woman's walking her dog, and like three guys come and rob her, and it's broad daylight. And she was on her cell phone, not paying attention or anything. But people think, oh well, I don't go out at night or I don't walk by myself. It doesn't have to be at night. It doesn't have to be by yourself. You know.
That's what I tell people too is like, "Oh, it will never happen to me." Well, it hasn't happened to me either yet, but I prepare like one day it could, and
Hmm.
I'd rather prepare and never have to use it, like I've always said 1,000 times, than need it and
Yeah.
not know how to use it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a big fan of, carrying it and encouraging people to carry. And, I always tell people too that are not familiar with guns, it may cost you 150 bucks. Go take a safety course or some kind of course. There's so many around at any local gun shop on, just a basic firearm handling safety course, and then what your state rules are for when you can and can't use it. That even things like that, you think further in advance. If you ever had to use your weapon and you're sitting in court testifying, you can say, well, based on my training in, this class at this gun shop, we were taught blah, 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 which, yeah, that's not going to make you free, but that's going to add to your testimony and articulate why you did what you did.
Yeah. Do you see more people applying now for the CCWs? And I mean, not you're not in law enforcement anymore, but what's your
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't really see that anymore, but I think, more people than we think carry. And I can normally see a gun pretty much on anybody if it's there.
yeah.
So
Yeah, that's my whole point with the Savage Syndicate is getting people prepared, inspiring the average person because criminals don't give a shit anymore.
mm-mm.
They're watching you all the time. I do a lot of tutorials on how to get pump gas, not walking around with your head in your phone, just basic stuff. I'm not teaching people how to go out there and be a UFC champion or, to do this. I'm just teaching the
Yeah,
basics because so many
that-
people don't know the basics and it's scary.
if you too, I mean, the basics is all. It's not that it's all you need, but if you just stand up to a criminal, honestly, like 90, 95% of them are gonna run and cower away. They're not. I mean, if even if you're getting robbed and you can just not run or not pretend to be scared, like most of them, at least from my experience, I don't think they would continue. And a lot of it's timing. So they're, you know, not all of them are dumb, but they're going to think, okay, I got to do this in, 20 seconds and run. So if you can stall that to 10, 15 seconds, they're most likely going to run.
Well, I did a tutorial the other day where there was multiple attackers and the guy fought back. And as soon as the
Yes.
guy fought back, the other one ran, right? And he's like, "Oh shit, like we didn't expect this." And
Yeah.
that's what I tell people. They don't want to have confrontation. They're not fighters. They're street thugs. And
Yeah.
so when you do fight back, they're just as stunned as you getting robbed. So you're right.
Exactly.
It takes that
There's
little
a good video. I'll have to send it to you. I just saw it on Instagram yesterday, and it's like some kind of convenience store or pharmacy or something like that. And two guys go to rob it. The one guy, as he's hopping over the table, the cashier grabs a knife and stabs the guy in the shoulder. His friend runs.
I
His
did a
friend's gone.
tutorial on
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I did.
Okay, that's the video you're talking about.
That was in Vegas, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to have another officer on to talk about the legalities of that. And maybe you could help us with that because I think, and this is just me, I've never been a law enforcement officer. I'm not a lawyer, but I think that he has every right to defend himself once that guy jumps over into his work because he doesn't know if he's armed. He doesn't know if he has a knife, a gun, or whatever.
Exactly.
Is he in the okay? I mean, Vegas has different rules, Nevada, but
Yeah. I mean,
what was your take on it?
it's gonna vary state by state. You know, for the most part, not even for the most part, you're always allowed to protect yourself.
Mhm.
It depends on the state. From my understanding, we only studied Pennsylvania state law. It depends on the state whether you're allowed to protect other people or not. So if you don't fear for your own life, sometimes you can't interfere with it. Like somebody else, you could see that person's life is at danger and you may not be able to do anything as a citizen, as a cop, absolutely. it's going to depend state by state on that. Whereas, like, in PA, we can defend ourselves, or if we see um, somebody else's life in danger, we can also interfere there too.
Mhm.
In that certain scenario, yeah, you can articulate. It's all about how you articulate it. You could have saw a bulge in his waist. You could have, his hands were in his pocket. You couldn't see him. You don't know what's going to happen. Um, whatever the case is, it's all about articulation.
Now, I think he did a great job. I commend him
Yeah,
100%, but what people tell me is, well, he did the one stab in the back of the neck, and that he might be in trouble for that because he'd already stabbed the guy yelled, "I'm dying," and he went for one more in the back. To me, hey, you cross that line,
yeah.
you get what you get. But
I,
would
maybe
that
you
be
saw him reaching in his pocket. You don't know what he has in his pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I did a tutorial on that, and I said, "Look, this is my perspective on it, an average guy," and I commend him. And you know what I liked out of that video was how calm and collective he walked out of there. And I called
Yeah,
it a Dumb and Dumber because if you look at it, those two guys were like sitting there. It looked like an SNL skit. They had their masks on and stuff, and the guy's like, "What are you guys wearing masks for?" He was so calm. I loved it. And then they actually like took the tip jar or something. He says, "Hey, my man, can I get the money back or the change
I
back?"
need the coins. Yeah,
Yeah, you could have the money, I just need the coins. And the guy's, like, goofing around and grabs something else, and that's when the other guy jumps over and, we all know what happened. But, yeah, it's a shit show. Those guys aren't professionals, they're total clowns. And that's what I tell people, if you attack your attacker, it saves you time. It could buy you enough time to run, right? You just turn
yeah,
around, hey, and run. There's no you don't need to be a hero, but if you want to attack your attacker, I think you increase the odds of not having severe damage or, dying or
yeah.
whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I mean, when you say the run too, I think everyone, you can stand your ground to an extent, but sometimes you just have to ask yourself, is it worth it? You know,
Yeah.
and especially like a stupid road rage incidents or anything like that. Someone, beeps at you, gives you the finger. Who cares? It's one thing if you're defending yourself, and it's another thing if you're not initiating it, but you recognize, something happened and walk away, without the liability of anything happening. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's always you got to weigh things out.
That's exactly what I tell people too, because you don't know the other person's crazy. To me, I have a moral code that says if I do X, I'm going to get Y and Z. Other people, he could just got out of jail and you're the first person he sees and you flip him off over a little
Exactly.
it could be a completely different scenario. So that's another thing that I do tutorials for. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Most
try to go ahead.
I always assume people are crazy.
Yeah.
If someone's honking or whatever the case is, a lot of my rental properties were in not so great areas, so I'm parking my car here, walking 2 blocks to a house or something. I just assume everybody's crazy, and not gonna start a fight or pick a fight with someone, and I don't know you know what they have on them or anything about them.
Mhm. That's a pretty good assumption though. Just assume everybody's crazy until they show you otherwise,
Yeah,
right?
pretty much. That's my take. Like I
Yeah.
was telling you kind of too. I mean, it's so a lot of the properties that I own are in my old district because I knew the area. For any cops listening that are not real estate investors, the area better than any real estate investor out there. It's especially, I'm a big fan of investing in like Class D neighborhoods. And one of the reasons is, and one thing I'm grateful for the police department for is, I learned that just because somewhere is like a terrible neighborhood with high crime doesn't mean there's not good people there. So you can buy houses, very cheap, and there's still, if you screen tenants right, there's awesome people that choose and want to live in that area. That's all they know. That's where their family lives. And you can, buy properties and do the whole, real estate investing thing with low startup costs.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue. We'll jump into real estate. So do you have a property management company that manages the rentals for you, or are you doing it day in and day out?
No, at this point, I have managed them before, but I have a property manager manages everything.
Yeah. And how do you see the market going now? I know we're kind of, obviously the interest rates are going high, but what do you think it's doing right now?
I don't know, to be honest. I know I'm a realtor. I'm supposed to be a professional, and each side, people that saying it's going to crash, they make a good point. The people saying that it's not going to crash, they also make a good point. Um, the one side is basically saying that real estate's going to tank because interest rates are rising, pre-approvals go down, people won't be able to afford as much, prices will come down. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I completely get it. Then you got the other side. Well, supply is low, demand is high. Basic economics say price is going to stay high. Yeah, that makes sense too. We have the baby boomer once largest generation, all of their children are now at the age where they're buying houses. So the demand for housing is huge. Builders, can't keep up with builders can't keep up with the demand for housing because they can't get material. We have all the supply chain issues. They can't get workers. Nobody wants to work, so builders can't keep up with it. So yeah, that argument makes sense too. Me, I'm kind of in the middle. I understand both sides, and um, me, any investment properties that I'm buying, I plan on holding on to for 10, 15, 20 years. So whatever happens in the next couple years, I don't really care.
Yeah, that's kinda how I am with crypto. I buy and hold, and everybody's losing their shit, and I'm like, "Well,
Yep.
it was money that I didn't care whether it went up or" I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, I want it to go up, but if I'm not using the money I would pay the mortgage or whatever with because the long game for me is the long game, right? I'm not in there
Yeah.
watching crypto
It's
go up.
there's a quote or whatever. It's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market. So
Yeah, yeah. So it's I used to get upset about, oh, the crash is coming, or I would get on it and I'd watch the news and I'd read the news and all this. And then one of my mentors says, "Why are you doing that? You're starting out your day negatively with a bunch of shit you can't control. So
yeah.
only do the thing, control the controllables." And I was like, you
Mhm.
know what? You're right. I'm not watching the news anymore. I turned my homepage instead of the news into Surfline because I surf a lot. So now I'm like, I'm a happier human being. I mean, I still get pissed about things that are in my world, in my bubble, but
Right.
the overall madness of the country right now is just I can't control it, so why get upset
Yeah.
about
Unfortunately, I think this is just a start too.
it, right? Which if I delve into, I'd get pissed and be like,
Yeah.
"Ah, this sucks," but you know
But
what?
then again, I mean, it's, they're like the show's just beginning and you can think of that as, whatever, everything's going to crash, whatever. Money's not going anywhere. It's not depleting. It's just changing hands.
Yeah,
So, every recession is an opportunity to buy assets on sale. Just a matter of how you look at it. I'm excited for it, honestly.
yeah, and I am too, and I go to another group, I went to a barbecue, and there's other problems up there, I'm like, "You guys are looking at the downside, the negative side, I mean, this is a good
Yeah.
time to get in and get your money working for you," so
We
that's how
have,
I look at it.
so at Producers Wealth, we have, clients in every industry, literally. And, what we're seeing right now, because a lot of these clients are, pretty high net worth people and business owners, entrepreneurs, investors, everything. Everyone's staying liquid, just waiting for opportunity. And, one of the benefits of infinite banking that we do is basically having cash available to borrow from your life insurance contracts. So we have clients, and myself included, that just have that cash sitting waiting to be borrowed from life insurance to go, buy whatever comes on sale.
Yeah. Do you have investors in your real estate endeavors, or is that just strictly your money?
No, I have some partners in there. Some properties I own by myself, some I own with my dad, and some I own with a couple other partners.
Yeah, because 'cause I'm in a real estate group, and I'm not into real estate at all, so I'm in a big group that has a lot of realtors in it, and it's piquing my interest, to, "Oh, let's raise money for this one," and I've done a little couple I forget what they call it, but, driving for dollars where I see some
Hmm.
houses that don't look that great, and I have a buddy
Yeah,
he finds investors, so I'm like, "Eh,
yeah. I
sometimes."
mean, again, any cops listening, you know the market better than anyone. While you're driving, I know cops that were with Philly, also, investors, as they're, driving, if there's no calls or anything, they're driving down, writing addresses down of abandoned properties. And then they're sending them direct mail off duty and wholesaling it,
Yeah.
you
That's
know.
something I'd be interested in learning more about because, like I said, in this group, there's a lot of people doing that, and it's just like it's another world to me. I haven't dived headfirst.
Yeah,
At
wholesaling I would be careful on. I just my personal opinion, I think the state real estate commissions all around the country are starting to really crack down on that, on
Yeah,
wholesaling.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, you can always get a realtor license and do the same thing. So it may cost you $500 and a couple weeks worth of class.
yeah. Do you own property only in your area, or do you have any out of state properties?
Nothing out of state. Philly, and then I used to own a bunch in Pittsburgh, but I've sold off all them.
Yeah.
Everything I have now is just in Philly.
Okay. So do you let me go over here to the thing. When I was reading your bio, something caught my attention, but of course, nothing's popping up right now. So explain a little bit more. I know we touched on it, but infinite banking, what you were
Sure.
talking about, life insurance and that. Explain to the listeners more about that and what it's about.
Yeah. So infinite banking is a strategy. The strategy is utilizing the living benefits of an insurance policy to acquire assets. Um, so a lot of people, when you think of life insurance as a whole, and majority of people get scared of the two words life insurance, just because of the two words, but it's so misunderstood, and a lot of people don't even know there are living benefits to a life insurance contract. So if you look up, any balance sheet of any bank or any big corporation, and you look at their tier one capital, look at where banks keep their money and big corporations keep their money, and it's in life insurance. So one of the living benefits of a life insurance contract, certain specially designed life insurance contracts, have a cash account. So that cash account grows and compounds uninterrupted. You get a guaranteed interest rate plus you get dividend from the profits of the company. The main benefit is when you can collateralize that account either through the insurance company and get a loan from the insurance company, or you can put that up as collateral to a bank. When you put it up as collateral, even with the insurance company, depending on the carrier, the money never comes out. So just picture you have $100,000 in your cash account in this life insurance policy, and this amazing flip comes on the market. You need 90 grand to go flip it. You can pull 90 grand out of your policy, go flip this house while your 100 is still growing and compounding. So you're never losing the opportunity cost on the money. Um, that's the main attractive thing, because then your money's working in two places at once, and you can do multiple levels where it's a couple places. Then it grows tax free too, so that's another benefit. It gets passed down to your estate tax free, so you can draw retirement income from it if you wanted to. So a lot of people structure these and set them up as retirement accounts. Fun fact, like I was telling you before, the creator of the 401k, and you can just anyone can Google this. He doesn't even recommend the 401k anymore. He says it's a monster that he created. And I have a mutual friend actually with him, and they were talking off camera before. He keeps his money in life insurance.
Really? How do you
hmm
how do you get your clients? How do you educate them on this?
So a lot of it comes from, you know, just research, people researching the whole idea. We do a lot of trainings. I'm on webinars all the time. So I do a lot of, just strictly infinite banking webinars, teaching people, because there is a big learning curve, and it's it's almost one of those things that sounds like too good to be true, and takes the research, and it takes until like you get that aha moment, like, oh shit, this makes sense, or that it actually all clicks. It took me 4 years, honestly. So from the time I first heard about it until I started my first policy was about 4 years, until it clicked and made sense. And then I was like, oh crap, I could have been 4 years further. There's a lot of good books. It's been around for 200 years. If you look up you know any of like the family office space, any of the um, you know, Rockefellers, they call it the Rockefeller method. Um, Walt Disney was a big infinite banker. He's been pretty public about it, where he says when Disney World was just an idea, he went to banks, investors, everything to raise the money for it. Nobody would give him the money, and he actually took a loan from his life insurance policy and started Disney World.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. Are people blown away? Because I'm pretty interested in this. Are people blown away when they find out you can do this?
Um, Eventually, a lot of people, like I said, they're scared of the words life insurance. If I said, "Hey, I got this great account, it's called a 501k or 601k, whatever you want to name it, that
Yeah.
it can do X, Y, and Z," they're sold immediately. But the second I say, "Oh, by the way, this is a life insurance policy, and one of the living benefits you get is a cash account through it. You log on just like you would any other bank or any other, account. You log on, you see a bank account with money in it. You can transact just like you normally would. that turns off a lot of people because they're scared of life insurance.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, it like I said, it takes a little bit of a learning curve. So there's several books I recommend. We have a whole course like as a client of Producers Wealth, you get one of the owner of my firm's courses, which breaks down everything. Explains everything, how to use it to acquire more assets, how to use it. It's not even just assets too. You can buy, your car, finance your wedding, college, mortgages, whatever you want, and you just recapture that interest cost.
So you teach them how to access it. You don't take over the policy, and then
Well, both. So Producers Wealth is a brokerage. So we'll design the policies and we'll write the policies, and then from there we coach on it too. So how to use it, based on whatever your goals are. Every client's different.
so if somebody like say if I have my life insurance policy and I go to them and say, hey, I either A want to extract the money from it and go to you guys, or do I just say, hey, Mr. Bob's policy, whatever place, I'm now switching it over to you guys. Is that how it works?
Kind of. It depends. So probably, anyone that already has a policy set up, if it wasn't designed by an agent specifically in the infinite banking space, 99% chance it was designed wrong. There's certain riders that have to be added. There's a certain split between your base premium and a paid up addition rider. Certain carriers, I mean, you can't, there's certain carriers you should go to, certain carriers you would never go to. Products, there's under like the whole life insurance umbrella. So there's life insurance. Underneath that is term insurance, permanent life insurance. Term insurance we don't use mainly. It depends if there's a gap in coverage between what the whole life policy covers and what their max insurability is. So sometimes we'll write that, but rarely. Only 1.11% of term policies ever pay out. So all the term insurance people that are paying into that, all that profits just going to people with whole life. Underneath the permanent life umbrella, there's universal life, index universal life, equity universal life, whole life. We only write policies under like the product of whole life insurance for many reasons that are could go I could go on and on for why we do that, but basically under that umbrella, then there's certain you know, ways to design a policy. There's all kinds of riders you can add. There's all kinds of splits, carriers. You want to make sure the carrier's been around for at least 200 years. One of our main carriers we use and write policies with has consecutively paid a dividend for 170 years straight without missing one. So through multiple world wars, depressions, recessions, everything, they've continued to pay a dividend. Um, there's so under the insurance world, there's stock insurance companies and there's mutual insurance companies. Stock insurance companies trade publicly, so any profits they make goes to policyholders and to stockholders. Mutual insurance companies, any profits the company make goes straight to the policyholders. Um, so yeah, I mean, we review a lot of policies that people send us, and then we can basically just advise, okay, here's what you have in place. If infinite banking is your goal, here's what you need. There's a lot of people, so we actually do. The owner of my firm calls it IUL Rescue, which is Index Universal Life Rescue, and we are able to roll over the cash account of policies like that into a well structured policy through whole life, and for many reasons, but mainly because the IULs, they're unsustainable in the long run, and that cash is at risk.
Are there any penalties if you if you withdraw from that policy?
For policy to policy, no. We have a lot of people that come to us with retirement accounts that they want to, once they learn the corruption of Wall Street and the banking industry, that want to get rid of that. So there are some strategies. It was better during 2020 because part of the CARES Act allowed people to withdraw money tax and penalty free. That's gone now. So there are some tax implications with withdrawing money from retirement accounts. That we always advise. We're not CPAs, so we always advise talk to a CPA first before you do that, and then we can do the math and say, okay, here's what that accounts forecasted to. If you did this and took the penalty hits, here's this and what it's casted to. So then we just weigh it out.
Yeah. Well, that's super. I mean, we'll leave a link on to people how they can reach out to you if they're more interested in learning more
Yeah,
about.
definitely. We can leave a link. The website's producerswealth.com. From there, there's some learning resources in there. If anyone, is interested and wants like a strategy call, there's a there's a link on there for getting a strategy call, and we can kind of just go over what your goals are, um, answer any questions you have and stuff like that. It's I think the more you ask around, especially in like the entrepreneur business investor world, you know, almost I would say like it's kind of funny. You have like some people from like maybe, and I'm completely generalizing just on my experience, but what I've seen like people into that like 0 to like 5 million net worth are qualified retirement plan millionaires. From the 5 million to the 20, 30, 100 million, billionaire is all life insurance.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I mean, that's awesome that you went from being a police officer.
Yeah.
You're still doing the real estate, right?
Yeah,
Or
so I run a real estate team as well as a realtor. I got two agents, and we do just typical listings and buyers.
yeah,
And then as an investor, I have one flip that I'm selling. It actually goes to market Friday, but after that one, I'm going to take a break from flipping and kind of just see what happens with the market, because like I was saying, I don't know if it's going to go up or if it's going to go down. I'm going to take a break from flipping. Rentals I'm still looking at and buying, but flipping I'm gonna pause on for a little bit.
yeah. So when you became a police officer and obviously saw, for 4 years, a totally different aspect than the real estate and the banking world, what any kind of, or if any kind of lessons did you learn that you can apply to your daily, business now, if any?
Definitely, that there's still good people in bad areas. That's like one of the things I'm most grateful for, because if you're like from out of state or even, in Philly, and you live in the nicer parts, on Philly, people are going to think like, oh, I'm never going down to that neighborhood. That neighborhood's terrible. There's shootings, crime, and everything. Whereas, I've learned that, yeah, it's high crime area, but that doesn't mean every single person there is a bad person. You know what I mean? So you can still buy and invest in those bad areas and have perfect tenants. My tenants are great. I take care of them. They take care of me, and it's a win-win. So that's kind of what I'm, most grateful for the police department, because the first neighborhood that I was in is terrible. It's the heroin capital of the whole East Coast. So there's, some really bad blocks and some really bad people in that neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, you probably have really great people skills because now from dealing with people in the police force and now you're dealing with people and talking
Kinda,
about the life
yeah. I mean,
stuff.
good people skills, I guess. I've learned how to deal with people and kind of de-escalation. So it's, even as a cop, especially that's where women cop, are awesome, because male cops sometimes want to go head to head with people, whereas a female cop can come in and de-escalate a lot better than a male can. Especially when we're talking with somebody and they feel the presence of another male coming at them, even if it's a cop or not, w- and they get their macho man want to act tough kind of thing. Whereas if it's a female cop, they're so much better, in my opinion, at least at de-escalating situations.
Yeah. That's another topic we talk about in Savage is like you don't always have to act like the tough guy, the big peacock. I'm 47. My day of
No.
proving anything is way out the window. So it's like, hey, if you want to shoulder bump me,
Oh
eh,
my gosh.
sorry, how you
How
doing?
many? Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't. So the second district that I worked in was it's like a gentrifying part of the city, and a lot of bars, and Friday, Saturday nights is just crazy. I mean, there's one strip with 5, 6 bars, and basically like a giant block party every single weekend. And we would get calls every Friday, Saturday night for just bar fights and everyone. And it's all, you know, guys with their alcohol muscles, and, want to act tough to another guy, and then, want to act tough to the police, rather than just you get yourself locked up for something so stupid in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. I saw so many of that in my 20s. Now I'm in bed by 9 o'clock every night. And I don't even,
You and me both, man.
yeah, I
I'm
don't even
not
know what
even
the
in my
world looks.
30s yet, but
Yeah, it's crazy if people just sit back and realize like what an idiotic thing to fight over. And it's I'm the
yeah.
old man now sitting in the rocking chair saying, "Oh, back when I was a kid." it's you kinda look at some of the shit you used to do and be like, "Wow, was it
Yeah.
worth it?" And 99%
Dude,
of the time,
especially, I mean, nobody thinks, and maybe this is just the business owner in me or investor, the liability. I
yeah,
mean, you punch somebody in the face and you can't justify, why you did that, and that it was self-defense. They can sue you and take everything you have.
yeah,
It's which actually, so that kind of leads in. That's another benefit of the life insurance is that depending on your state, most of them, your cash account is completely safe from any creditors, or any lawsuits, any bankruptcies, or anything like that. Um, so just another perk of keeping your cash in there versus like, you get sued for something and they come after everything you have.
yeah, and that's I think about that. There was a story that I'm writing a book with Mike, and
Hmm.
one of the stories was a guy pulled a knife on me when my kid was just a toddler, and it stuck with me. And I wanted to get the guy, and I wanted all the stupid, I want to revenge. I know where he hangs out, and then clarity kicked in. I'm like, this guy doesn't even realize. He probably doesn't remember pulling the knife on me. I have a lot to lose. I have my wife, my kid. I have house payment, all this stuff. And that side won, the shoulder, good
Yeah.
bad shoulder. That one won, and I was like, and I've actually saw that guy a couple times when I was on my car and he pulled it up alongside of me with all of his cans, and I'm like,
Hmm.
one little nudge, I could ruin this guy's day, but I'm like, at the end of the day, what's the
Yeah.
fucking point? Like,
That's like you brought up, Sean Whalen earlier. He just posted a video talking about all the heat he's under, and he's like, I would love to fight the FEC, FCC, or whatever who's he's disputing with. He was like, I would absolutely love to argue and fight with them. It'll cost me about 1.5 million in attorney fees. I don't care about the money, but I have employees with jobs, and that means more to me than picking a fight, and it's, yeah, could you win? Maybe. Would you be out at 7 figures? Yeah, just for the principle. Is it worth it?
yeah,
I completely I respected Sean even more from that video, that he put out.
yeah, you just gotta choose your battles, and I'd say
Exactly.
more than half of them aren't worth fighting. I mean, there's obviously, you gotta fight for your family and if things are going wrong, but yeah, we gotta think about other people, and there's just more than me and my ego that,
Yeah.
are at stake.
When you just brought up fighting for your family, I don't know if you guys teach this already, but another good kind of tactic, have a plan in place. If somebody comes in the front door or whatever, what's your strategy? Where are your weapons at? If somebody comes in the back door, what's your strategy? Just so that, and that it's repetition to where all of that would come second nature. And there's even like, there's been times as a cop where I'd have my gun out and not that I didn't know it, but it was just the repetition of, we had the three safety holsters. So you can do all of that without even thinking, just out of the repetition of um doing it so many times.
Yeah. I do tell people that, like, I'm in my office right now and I can see my gun safe. It's not just having it in your nightstand anymore. You gotta have it downstairs. You gotta, because
Mhm.
what I say is, what are you gonna tell somebody? Somebody breaks in your room or you're downstairs. "Well, hold on, let me go up and get my gun
Yeah.
real quick." No,
Bill Burr has a really good skit on that. You
oh,
ever seen it?
really? Uh-uh.
I'll have to send it to you. Real,
Yeah,
really good. He's like, I'll send it to you. He talks the same about well, you got to keep the ammo in one room, the gun here, and he's like, what? So I got to assemble the gun as someone's chasing me?
right? And that's
Yeah,
what I talk to people about. I'm like, because I do a lot of tactical training where we simulate home invasions. And
yeah,
so, like, my son's room is at my doorway of mine. So he's in line with that. So I can't just wake up and start blindly shooting at a guy
right.
standing in the doorway because I got to look and think about things behind it.
Yeah,
That's what people who, to me, I love thinking about this. I love role playing. I love the scenario based training. But to some people, they're like, oh, I wouldn't even thought about that. I'm like, that's why you need to practice. That's why you need to
yeah,
have a plan, like you said, and just practice, practice,
mhm,
practice.
yeah. Practicing too, because I mean, all my friends are into guns, and we go shooting fairly often, and the if you ever go to a shooting range, all you see is people pointing down range and shooting. There's no drills, there's no movement, there's no high adrenaline, there's no left hand shooting, there's no shooting from the ground, there's no, running and shooting, which, depending on where you're at, you got to be real safe with that. But, if you have access to an outdoor shooting range or even like private property, do burpees, jumping jacks, get your adrenaline and heart rate running, and
Yeah,
then do your shooting drill. Do it from the ground. What if you just got knocked over? How you drawing your weapon from the ground?
yeah,
Um, there's all kinds of different drills you can do other than just standing and plinking, from 25 yards, 20 yards.
I found out that I'm a better shooter, I'm more accurate when I'm under those stress tests. Because when I'm just standing there, I'm like, "God, what am I aiming at?" But when you're
Yeah,
attacking and we do those drills, bing, bing, bing,
yeah,
my
that
trigger's
was
like, "What are you
yeah.
thinking?" I don't know.
The firearm training was the most fun in the police academy. We do it's a pretty intense from what I understand compared to other police academies, it's a pretty intense one. We do like 5,500 rounds in 2 weeks or something like that.
Mhm.
But then we'll do, all the high intensity stuff. We'll because I was trained on a, bike too, so I was a bike cop for a little bit. We'll go do like a 3, 4, 5 like fast bike ride and
Mhm.
then ride straight to the range, and we have to go through drills as our heart rate's up and we have we're out of breath and stuff, so it's more than just standing and plinking, and you use your left hand. There's a video of that the Texas school shooter, and the one cop is awkwardly holding his right hand around a wall when he should have just put it in his left hand and been confident with shooting with his left hand.
Yeah.
um
Was that the guy who got the Purell afterwards or whatever? I saw.
yeah, it might have been him.
Yeah.
So
But that's the same thing I tell about people with fighting. Like when you spar, you got to put the hours into sparring because, it's different than like, hey, let's go toe to toe, right? You're calm,
mhm,
you're chill. I am anyway. But when you got an attacker on, there's shit coming at you different ways,
yeah.
different angles. There could be multiple attackers, and that's you just,
Dude,
when I was
I the, yeah.
good.
The first, like, guy on the street that I got, like, into a tussle with, I'm not even and I'll say it, I don't care, I was shaking afterwards. My whole body was just shaking because my adrenaline was so high, and then even, like, after that, when I was trying to calm down, I couldn't even tell you what just happened,
Yeah,
I was fighting with a guy that had a gun in his waist, and we were fighting over the gun, and it was almost like I blacked out to where you can train and go through scenarios in the academy all you want, but when it's your, first tussle over a gun in the street, you're not even thinking. And like, I was shaking after that.
yeah. But that's what the training helps you with, right? Because instead of like you blacked out, but you still did what you trained for
Yeah,
because
exactly.
the repetitions got you to think
Yeah,
that way.
your subconscious mind.
Yeah. Well, man, we drilled down some great points today, and we talked about the infinite banking.
Mm.
I think people, if they didn't learn anything out of this conversation, then I don't know what we can do for them.
Yeah,
I don't
definitely.
want
That's good. I got a podcast too, Patriot Producers.
to.
So, it's all about American made, patriotic producers or entrepreneurs. So it's just interviewing a lot of different entrepreneurs. And then specifically what I like to do is relate, because a lot of them are infinite banking clients. So relate how they use infinite banking in their industry and their business. So um, that's kind of like, my niche right there.
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I'll leave. Send me the links that you have, and I will definitely put them in there, and I'll promote the hell out of them because uh, you know, I love helping other people doing the same thing I'm doing. It doesn't matter if they're competitors or not. If you can add value, then I support everything that you're
Yeah,
doing. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was great. I mean, we just started. We honestly woke up this morning, didn't know each other, and now we've talked for most of the day today. So,
Yeah, right?
this is awesome, Carl. I really appreciate you coming on. It was great to meet you, and I'm sure we'll be in contact soon. But if you have social media or let everybody know right now where they can find you, the websites, social media.
So the infinite banking website's producerswealth.com. The podcast is patriotproducers.com. If anyone's in PA and needs a realtor, I can absolutely, get you in touch with that too with my team. Um, Instagram Schnitz93. I'm not really big on Facebook. You can add me on Facebook, just Karl Schnitzer. I'm really not big on either. I'll post stuff for the business, but that's about it.
Yeah. I just in one of my meetings today, somebody said, "Oh, I don't like doing social media." He's like, "Well, that's why. It's not social media, it's marketing."
Yeah,
I was like,
absolutely.
"That's the way
Trust
to
me,
look
if it
at
wasn't
it."
for business, I wouldn't even have it. But
100% agree with you on that one. Well,
yeah,
again, Carl, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. You just added tons of value today, and I really appreciate you coming on here and
yeah.
taking the time. So, thank you, and I will talk to you soon.
Thanks, Josh.
See ya.
See ya.